Hey all, welcome back to the channel. So I'm going to start with what this video isn't. This video is not a hate piece. This video isn't a tangent. This video is not gonna be me going meh, 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 3 for 3 this, 3 for 3 that, blah blah blah. No. This video is just meant to serve as general advice born from observations made as a member of this community, the Halo community. Now, it is very unlikely that anyone from 343 Industries will see this. But if they do happen to see this, I want to just say this right now. I'm going to say that your position is not enviable. You guys are going to be under a lot of pressure, and you have a long, long road ahead of you for the next Halo game. I understand that this community can be extremely toxic and incredibly crude. It actually drove me to stop making Halo content for a while. So I understand that atop all of the pressures you already have to deal with, you have to deal with what is admittedly a very difficult community. A community that doesn't even agree with itself at times. So I understand that it isn't easy. And I'm not going to tell you how to run your business or how to make your game. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be candid with what I see, what I've been seeing, and what I think should be done, just in general, because, quite frankly, I think that sometimes someone needs to be blunt with their criticism. I'll be constructive, I won't be toxic, but I will be candid, and I won't sugarcoat things. So, let's start with some general philosophies for Halo going forward that might help you. Know your audience, know your game, keep to the fundamentals, expand from there. To be clear, when I say know your audience, know your game, keep to the fundamentals, expand from there, I'm not saying tunnel vision on nothing else other than the old things. Because you can't just make the same game with a new coat of paint on it, right? There needs to be changes, there needs to be new features. That is true. But you can't reinvent the wheel. And quite frankly, this has been something you have been trying to do for a long time now. And it isn't working for you. It hasn't worked, period. It was very controversial with Halo 4. Did well, but it was very controversial. So then you tried it again with Halo 5. You tried it again with Halo Infinite. You've tried it with the Halo TV show. It hasn't worked. You need to stop that. I know I said I'm not going to tell you what to do, but as a member of this community who has been hearing the community, regardless of what they think, has been loud and clear. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. So, stop trying to appeal to a broader audience, in quotation marks. Know your audience. Your audience is the Halo community. Your audience are fans of Halo. And when the fans of Halo are happy and thriving, when the game is doing well, because it is doing well with its community, that sends good vibes outwards, alright? If the idea of appealing to a broader audience was... If you want to take that idea, start by appealing to your core audience first. Because if your core audience is constantly unhappy, if your core audience is feeling constantly neglected, then, quite frankly, that's not going to appeal to a broader audience because they're going to see that the core audience is not happy. So know your audience. Your audience happens to be the fans of Halo, not the people who are unfamiliar with Halo, not the people who have heard of Halo or the people that might have even tried again. No, your audience are the people that love Halo and want Halo to succeed going forwards. Now, your audience does happen to be very split. I acknowledge this. So, there needs to be compromise now and again. There is a pretty hefty split between fans of the Reclaimer era art style and the Reach art style and the Bungie era art style. Give them all of the above. you can add multiple art styles into the game. Multiple designs, multiple generations. You can do that. Because all those designs exist together in the lore. It's not like it's a fundamental style. No, there's a lore reason for these designs. So, well, they all exist. And you could bring all those designs into the game. Halo Infinite was a very good compromise on movement, right? There are people that wanted to keep Halo 5's enhanced movement mechanics, and then there are people that wanted a more classic Halo 3-esque style of movement. Halo Infinite was a good compromise. And generally speaking, people did enjoy that. People did enjoy Infinite's gameplay loop. So, compromise like that. Know your audience, understand the voices within that audience, and go from there. Now, you can't make everyone happy. This is a sad truth. But you can do your best. Next things next, know your game. Keep to the fundamentals. Halo is a variety of things. It's a space opera, it's a riveting story, it's a moral tale, it's a arena shooter, casual or competitive. It's many things. Halo is many things. But if there's one thing that you should know, it's the fundamentals of Halo. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, the fundamentals are this or the fundamentals are that. When I say the fundamentals of Halo, the game, I mean, look at the features. What do the features have? Remember when I said, don't try to reinvent the wheel? Well, I'm going to get into some lessons here. I mentioned that you have been trying to reinvent the wheel constantly and that it doesn't work, and that you've had to kind of relearn this lesson over and over again. Well, with this Halo game, you need to make sure that lessons don't need to be relearned. Be realistic with what is expected of a Halo game. What features are expected of a Halo game? And focus on making sure that those features, those required features, are in the game. And when those expectations are met, you can go and expand from there. Halo Infinite, as an example, was too ambitious. It tried to do too much everywhere all at once, and in the end, it wound up doing very little, even with the updates. Because all it wound up doing was just add in what really should be in a Halo game. To be clear, I commend your work on Infinite. It's come a long way. But the fact that it had to, that work had to be done post-launch, and that it took so long, that's not something that can happen again. It's not something that should have happened in the first place. Halo Infinite wanted to do so many things. It wanted to, have this live service game that would last 10 years. It wanted to have this huge open world thing where you get to explore a Halo ring. It wanted to have introduce this grand thing with the Endless, and wanted to have this big story on Zeta Halo with the Banished. And as a result, because so much was being put into play, you went too far with it. And as a result, you had to cut back at the last moment. And as a result, although I do love Halo Infinite's campaign, I do adore it, I also recognize that it's kind of a nothing burger. Because it hasn't really moved the plot forward. If anything, it's thrown most of the plot into plot purgatory. Sure, it sets up some stuff, but really, there's no resolution, there's no answers, just a whole lot of nothing. The multiplayer. There was supposed to be all these new features, and all these new features with all these ideas, and the academy, and blah, blah, blah. And what wound up happening? There was a million unfinished projects. And as a result, when the game launched, the multiplayer was far from complete and wouldn't be complete for a good while. So, Be realistic. That's lesson 1. Be realistic with what is expected of a Halo game. What features are in Halo games that need to be in the Halo game? Couch co-op. Couch co-op and co-op. Campaign for the campaign and the multiplayer. Forge. Firefight. Big team battle. Infection. Good customization. And that's already a pretty hefty list. Not to mention all the other game modes and the numerous maps that you need to add in. That's a hefty list. That is a hefty expectation that you already have to meet. So when you pile all these other extra things onto what is already basically expected of you, is demanded of you, you are basically spreading yourself too thin, doing too much all at once, and you are failing to deliver pretty much any of it because you don't finish any of it, because there's just so much to do. So, scale down, focus on the core fundamentals, and then, when those are done, then you start adding in new features for the new game. What I'm saying is, don't just make all these things and then release the game and then add everything in else after. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying make sure that at the very least, you have all these basic things ready for Halo. And then you add on to it, right? Make sure you have the meat of the meal. Make sure that you have the general meal together, and then add on the dessert. The new features, the new ideas, the new customization items, the new features like the Academy. Those things should be like the icing on the cake, the dessert to the dinner, right? They can't be the meal. They need to be with the meal, added on to the meal. So, with that in mind, what are some things that Halo Infinite did introduce that you could absolutely expand in the next Halo game? Because, let me tell you, Halo Infinite did have great ideas. It really did have amazing ideas. So, thing 1, AI companions. That was a really cool idea, and actually, when I found out about the AI companions, I was really excited. I was really excited at the idea of having your own personal AI, your own personal, albeit dumbed down, Cortana, Roland, Isabel. Your own personal Virgil. That's a really cool idea. And actually, there's one AI that was data mined a while back, voiced by Jeremy Lee. I'm so terrible with names. I apologize to her. That I really wish got added into the game, and it never got added into the game. So, yeah, things like that. AI companions are a really cool idea, and how can you expand on them? Well, maybe make them, maybe you can change their personalities a little bit. Maybe you can introduce more mechanics with them. As an example, the loot cave idea. Really cool idea. What if you add in other things? Like, what if, as an example, on the map, you can plug your AI into a thing, and it can, open up a garage, and you can get a tank? Or what if you hook the AI up to a Forerunner terminal, and a bunch of Sentinels spawn in all over the map, right? Things that could change. Think about it like that, right? Once you've added in all of the core things that should be added in, right? That should be part of a Halo game at launch. Then start talking about those really cool ideas, those really cool, neat ideas, because they are good ideas. The AI companions are a good idea, and the Academy is a brilliant idea. One thing that a lot of games really struggle with, shooters especially, is learning curve. Because, right, you'll have players that start up the game and they get mollywopped on their first go. They don't know how to play. They are getting killed left and right. They don't know what's going on. And so they just get killed. The Academy is a great idea because it allows the players to experiment, to grow, to learn the mechanics of Halo on their own, at their own pace. Because, frankly, I know it. A lot of people, like these playlists in different games, but welcome mats don't really work because it doesn't allow players to learn at their own pace. The Academy is a brilliant idea. So there's potential with these ideas, and you can go somewhere with them. Just make sure that you have the core fundamentals first, and then go from there. Another thing that could be brought in for the campaign, Halo Infinite's boss fights were great. They are the best boss fights in the series. And the series, well, Halo has always been iffy with boss fights. I just think everyone knows that. Like, despite how much we love Halo 2, the boss fights were kind of meh, right? So, keep the boss fights, but expand on them. Right? As an example, the Monitor boss fights in Halo Infinite. The second one, I thought had some really cool mechanics because, it incentivized you to be quick while also making good use of the weapons around you. Because, it's not like you can just stay in cover. Typically in Halo, what you do, your shields are down, gotta go to cover. This boss could, if you stay in cover for too long, take away your cover, thereby throwing the player off and forcing them to adjust and adapt. That's really cool. Work with that. Make sure you've got a solid campaign, but work with that. See, this is what I mean. Making sure that the fundamentals are there, but then adding in those new features on top of those fundamentals. So that gets into the next thing. Keep to a vision. This is frankly the most important thing and my biggest criticism of 343 Industries from the get-go. 343 has never had a consistent vision for Halo, not since Halo 4 released in 2012. Every single time a game has been released, there are constant pivots and overcorrections. Halo 4 is a little controversial. What should we do? Okay, scrap, write off the didact in Halo Escalation, and then, screw the stuff we were setting up with Julim Dama and Spartan Ops, kill off Julim Dama immediately, let's go with the Guardians. Oh, crap! People did not like the Cortana and the Guardians and the Created. Okay, let's just, completely push all of that out of the way, and then, slot in what we got for Halo Infinite. As a result, you have a million different plot threads, none of which have been resolved. Almost every single member of the Halo cast is in plot purgatory right now. Almost every single part of the cast. That is not good. And before you do anything else, fix those plot threads. Once again, I know I said I wasn't going to just tell you what to do, but speaking as someone who writes themselves, and no, I'm not referring to the crappy fan fictions I do for fun on the side. No, I'm talking, I actually write books here. You do not want to open new plot threads when you have not even finished the other plot threads, which were opened after the other plot threads weren't finished. If you're going to open plot threads while there are still open plot threads, you need to do it well. You need to do it organically. You need to make it flow seamlessly. The way it's been done now, it's all completely disjointed. You basically just got a billion unresolved threads while you're opening more and completely ignoring and refusing to develop those threads. No, stop doing that. that isn't working either. Keep to a vision. Stick to the vision. Halo Infinite has started something. Work with what it started. Don't just abandon what its story started. Now, that said, find a way to weave those other plot threads together. Find a way to make it seem consistent. And if you want to have the main story move on, find a way to tell those plot threads anyways. Books, media, comics, spin-off games, right? As an example, you've got a pretty solid thing going with Vale and the Arbiter. Like, you've done a good job explaining where Vale and the Arbiter are at the moment. That is good. Work with that, right? That said, there are some characters that shouldn't just be moved off to a book. Lasky, Blue Team, hell, even Locke. You need to resolve them. Anders, her story needs to be resolved. The Spirit of Fire, its story still needs to be resolved. Work with what you've got, tie it together, and also fix the galaxy. Like, from a world-building perspective, it's kind of a mess at the moment. It's very much a mess. Halo 5 set up everything to be like, oh, Cortana is the dominant power, and the UNSC Infinity is the last hope of humanity, and you have all these separate groups that are trying to resist Cortana, but also fighting each other. Well, all that's out the window now, and quite frankly, we don't know what the state of the galaxy is. We don't. Even though we've gotten books, even though we've gotten the encyclopedia, even though we've gotten the more recent stories and novels, the state of the galaxy is still pretty up in the air. So, make sure you've got a solid galaxy to work with as well. Because not only is the cast in plot purgatory, not only is the plot in plot purgatory, the literal setting of Halo is in purgatory at the moment. I'm just gonna briefly step into an opinion of mine. Make it a full price game. This is not me giving business advice, so feel free to disregard this. But from my point of view, just make it a full price game. Genuinely, make it a full price game with all the features of a Halo game. Don't monetize customization again. That was a very bad move. Make it accessible and free, part of progression. But if you have to have monetization in the game, have the option of certain items being purchasable. Like, you could have all the classic items, say maybe all the reach armors and stuff, as free things to unlock. A solid, meaty progression system. And then maybe sprinkle in things like the SPI armor and whatnot. And then if you want to have other items that you can pay for, like having a separate shop for things, like, the recently added instantiation or MA5B, make the shop worthwhile. But don't force players to buy things to express themselves. That screws them over and drives people away and gives the game a bad rep, thereby losing you potential customers. Whales aren't worth it. Whales aren't worth it. Now, another thing to note, this is a very personal thing for me, female body types. I've also spoken to many women in the community that felt they couldn't be a badass woman in power armor. I do think that the female side of the community got screwed over pretty damn bad. Now, finally, media. More media. I mentioned this. More comics, more books, more spin-off games. 343 doesn't have to be the only ones working on Halo. Look at Halo Wars. Halo has been in a severe drought for content since Halo Wars 2 dropped. Infinite's recovery is commendable, but again, not enough. And finally, make sure lessons are learned from the Halo TV show. Remember what I said. Don't relearn lessons. I want the Halo TV show to succeed. A brief criticism I will make of the Halo community is the Halo community almost seems to want things to fail at times, which is very self-destructive. Like, in their anger, they almost root for things to fail instead of actually trying to make things better. They basically go, how dare this thing be bad? And then they, like, root for its continued downfall while simultaneously condemning said downfall. It's very self-destructive. So I'll openly acknowledge that. I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. But alas, make sure lessons are learned from the Halo TV show. And from what I have heard, lessons have been learned. But when making media for Halo, don't try to reinvent the wheel. The wheel isn't a square. Why are you trying to make the wheel a square? Don't make the wheel a square. The wheel is round. The wheel is a wheel. Don't give it corners. And with that in mind, that is my open, honest, candid criticisms, critiques, and opinions, and general advice. I will see you in the cosmos, friends.